The moment Lauren Reed stepped into the grand lobby overlooking San Francisco Bay, she felt the air shift, like destiny had been waiting for her, arms crossed, tapping its foot. She had Noah's small hand wrapped in hers, his iPad tucked under his arm, still glowing with the spaceship, drawing he'd been obsessed with all week. She only needed to check in, attend her panel, then hide in her hotel room until the conference ended. Simple, safe, controlled. But life had never followed her script. The marble floor reflected back a world she didn't belong to. Sleek suits, glossy name tags, the soft click of designer heels, luxury perfumes swirling through the air. She felt painfully out of place in her modest navy blazer and scuffed flats. Noah tugged her sleeve, wheezing slightly from the cold AC. "Mom, can I sit over there? The light is cool." "Stay where I can see you, sweetheart," she whispered. He nodded and shuffled toward a sunlit corner, inhaler peeking from his pocket. Then the elevator chimed, and Lauren froze, because the man stepping out of it was the last person on Earth she was prepared to see. Eric Dalton, her ex-husband, her unfinished nightmare, her son's father, though he didn't know it. He looked exactly as she remembered, maybe sharper, colder, richer. His tailored charcoal suit fit like armor, his silver tie pin glinting under the lights. Beside him, Brooke Langston clung to his arm, dazzling in a white blazer dress, the kind that whispered old money and quiet power. Lauren's breath stuttered. Not here, not today. Please, God, not now. Eric laughed at something a CEO said, tilting his head the same way he did when he wanted the world to admire him. Lauren backed away, heart pounding in her throat. If she could slip behind the banner stand, if she could just disappear. But fate didn't let her. Noah's inhaler slipped from his pocket, clattering across the marble. The sound cracked through the lobby like a gunshot. Eric turned. Their eyes collided. 6 years of buried memories slamming into both of them at once. For a moment, he didn't seem to recognize her. But then his gaze sharpened, his smile faded, and something dark flickered behind his eyes. "Lauren," he breathed. Her knees weakened. No, no, no. Before she could turn away, Noah jogged toward her, picking up his inhaler, cheeks flushed from exertion. Eric's face drained of color. Those eyes, those features, that age, everything added up at once. He stepped closer, voice low, restrained, but shaking. "Lauren, who is this boy?" Noah blinked up at him. "Mom, do you know this man?" Lauren swallowed hard, her world cracking open, every lie she'd lived the past 7 years rushing back like a tidal wave. She tightened her grip on her son and whispered, terrified, because she knew nothing would ever be the same again. "Stay behind me, Noah." But Eric stepped closer anyway. And what he said next would destroy the last piece of safety she thought she had. Lauren Reed had mastered the art of disappearing long before she ever stepped into the San Francisco conference hall. It was a survival skill, one carved into her bones the day she walked away from a life that was supposed to be hers. 7 years earlier, she had been a bright, soft-spoken legal assistant in Chicago, the kind of woman who stayed late to finish briefs no one else wanted and brought homemade muffins to the office because she didn't know how not to be kind. She grew up in a cramped Ohio apartment above a laundromat, raised by a mother who worked double shifts and taught her 2 rules: never owe anyone anything and never expect people to stay. Maybe that's why she fell for a man like Eric Dalton, someone who made staying sound like a promise carved into stone. Back then, she was 25, hopeful, and stupidly in love. She clung to every warm gesture, every compliment, every soft, "I need you, Lauren." What she didn't understand was that Eric needed someone to support his climb, not someone with dreams of her own. When he asked her to quit her paralegal program, he said it with a smile. When he suggested they move to Chicago for his career, he called it a fresh start for both of them. At first, Lauren believed him. She believed everything, until the day she found out she was pregnant. The memory haunted her in quiet moments. The fluorescent light of the kitchen, the faint smell of burnt coffee, Eric's face twisting, not with fear or love, but with irritation. A baby, he'd said, like she had spilled wine on one of his precious contracts. Lauren, do you understand what this would do to my trajectory? She remembered her hands shaking. She remembered whispering, "We can make it work." And she remembered the moment his voice turned sharp, cold, final. "I won't let you ruin this for us. End it." She broke that night, not just from the cruelty of his words, but from realizing he never intended to build a life with her. She was a placeholder, a silent assistant in both his career and his marriage, and in her devastation, she said the words that would haunt her for years. "Fine, I'll end the pregnancy." But she didn't. She packed a duffel bag, took a cheap one-way flight to Seattle, and decided her child deserved better than a father who treated him like an inconvenience. Now, at 32, Lauren carried the weight of every choice she'd made. Her heart condition made stress dangerous. Her bank account was modest. She worked hard, lived simply, and raised Noah with love she didn't know she had inside her. To the world, she was ordinary. To her son, she was everything. And today, the day Eric saw Noah, Lauren feared everything she built could crumble with one sentence, one demand, one legal threat from the man she once believed she'd spend forever with. But the worst part wasn't seeing him. It was realizing he saw Noah and recognized himself. Seattle had become a quiet kind of refuge for Lauren Reed, one she hadn't planned on, but one that embraced her anyway. The city's soft gray skies and salted breeze off Elliott Bay wrapped around her like a blanket every morning. Her apartment wasn't much, just a modest two-bedroom on the third floor of an aging building in Capitol Hill, with thin walls and a temperamental heater. But it overlooked a line of evergreens and, on a clear day, a slice of the skyline. To Lauren, it was enough. It was safety. It was home. Her daily life revolved around routines stitched together with exhaustion and love. Mornings began early, with Noah wheezing lightly as she helped him take a slow inhale from his small blue inhaler. Then breakfast, usually oatmeal or the cheapest cereal she could find on sale, and the scramble to get him to school before she headed to her nonprofit's office. The office itself sat in a renovated brick building tucked between a cafe and a bike shop. Inside, there were mismatched chairs, humming computers, recycled paper flyers everywhere, and coffee that tasted more like burnt hope than caffeine. But it was meaningful work, helping families with sick children navigate insurance, paperwork, and treatment options. It was the kind of job that reminded Lauren every day that survival wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was economic. It was a fight. Yet, hundreds of miles away, another world existed. And that world belonged entirely to Eric Dalton. His Manhattan life was polished and sharp. Skyscraper boardrooms lined with glass, black cars waiting at the curb, headlines mentioning his name anytime a big corporate merger hit the news. His office on Park Avenue boasted floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire skyline, the kind of place where deals worth billions were whispered over Mont Blanc pens and glasses of imported whiskey. And now, thanks to Brooke Langston's family connections, he had begun making appearances at charity galas at the Plaza Hotel, attending rooftop dinners overlooking Central Park, shaking hands with CEOs who controlled half of Wall Street. 2 universes, 2 lives, 2 versions of a story neither of them had finished. And now, because fate apparently had a cruel sense of humor, those universes collided in San Francisco Bay. The conference venue stood like a shining monument of corporate wealth, glass walls glinting under the California sun. Inside, the ceilings stretched high, chandeliers sparkling like constellations, the scent of luxury perfume drifting with the hum of polished conversations. Screens displayed company logos, including one Lauren prayed she'd never see again, Dalton and Blake, LLP. Noah looked almost out of place among the suits and dresses, his little sneakers squeaking softly as he clung to his mother's hand. Lauren felt the weight of every insecurity pressing into her spine. Her clothes weren't expensive. Her hair wasn't professionally styled. Her badge read Program Director, but she doubted anyone here believed she belonged among them. Yet this was the setting she had to survive, a battlefield disguised as a conference hall. And somewhere in this glittering maze of wealth and power stood the man who could tear her entire life apart with a single move. And he was already looking for answers. Eric Dalton was the kind of man people trusted instantly and regretted trusting later. Everything about him was crafted, polished, engineered to impress. The confident handshake, the tailored three-piece suits, the quiet but expensive cologne, the Rolex he never flaunted, yet somehow everyone noticed. Even his smile was strategic, warm enough to charm, sharp enough to warn. But beneath the immaculate surface was a man who treated life like a negotiation and people like assets. Especially Lauren, maybe mostly Lauren. He had been raised on the outskirts of Boston in a family that never had enough. Never enough money, never enough influence, never enough prestige. Eric vowed early on that he would never feel small again. Ambition became his religion. His law degree became his weapon. And reputation, his priceless currency. By the time Lauren met him, he had already mastered the performance. He knew exactly how to appear attentive, loving, supportive. Exactly how to make her believe she mattered. But only until she didn't. When she became pregnant, Eric didn't see a miracle. He saw a liability. A baby meant unpredictability, slower work hours, missed opportunities. A partner at his firm once told him, "A man with a newborn is a man with a weakness." Eric believed it. And when Lauren stood in their Chicago kitchen holding the pregnancy test with trembling hands, he saw his future slipping off script. So he pushed her, manipulated her, cornered her with words so cold they still echoed in her nightmares. "You know what to do. Don't make this harder than it has to be." 7 years later, Eric had climbed higher than he ever dreamed. Partner at Dalton and Blake, a near-perfect corporate record, Manhattan office overlooking the skyline he worshipped, and of course Brooke Langston, the polished PR darling with family money old enough to have its own museum wing. Brooke boosted his image, smoothed his edges, covered the cracks he didn't want anyone to see. With her on his arm at gala events at the Ritz-Carlton or the Plaza, no one would ever imagine he had once been married to a girl from Ohio who wore clearance rack dresses. But even Brooke didn't know everything. She didn't know about the deals Eric buried under NDAs. She didn't know about the offshore account under her name he was using as a tax shield. She didn't know about the private investigator he hired the month before the conference, an investigator tasked with checking if Lauren had resurfaced anywhere after someone claimed to see a woman who looked like her in Seattle. Eric was paranoid. Eric was calculating. Eric was preparing, without knowing for what. So when he stepped into the San Francisco conference lobby and saw a boy with his eyes, a boy the right age, a boy with Lauren's hand wrapped around his, he didn't see innocence. He didn't see a child. He saw a secret, a liability, a threat to everything he had built. And Eric Dalton did not tolerate threats, which meant Lauren and Noah were no longer safe at all. Lauren had prayed silently, desperately, that the confrontation in the lobby would be the end of it. A moment of shock, a question she could dodge, a hallway she could escape into. But the universe had other plans, and they unfolded in the worst possible place. The conference's main presentation hall, where hundreds of attendees gathered for the keynote panel. She took a seat near the aisle, hoping to slip out quickly when it was over. Noah sat beside her, doodling planets on his iPad, his inhaler resting on his knee. Lauren kept checking the door, terrified Eric would walk in. Of course he did. Of course he was a featured speaker. And of course, he saw her instantly. Eric entered with the commanding presence of someone who lived in boardrooms and thrived under pressure. Brooke walked behind him, eyes sharp, already studying Lauren with an expression that mixed suspicion and hostility. Eric ignored the murmuring crowd and moved straight toward Lauren's row. "Lauren," he said under his breath, "we're not done." She stiffened. "Not here." But Eric didn't care. He sank into the seat directly behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath against her neck when he whispered, "Running won't help you this time." Her stomach nodded. The keynote began, but Lauren couldn't hear anything except the pounding of her pulse and the occasional wheeze from Noah. She placed a reassuring hand on his back. "You okay, baby?" He nodded, though his breathing was shallow. Halfway through the presentation, the moderator opened the floor to questions. That was when everything detonated. Eric stood. He did not wait to be called on. He simply rose, powerful, polished, purposeful, and the room fell silent around him. "I have a question," he said, his tone smooth but edged with ice. "It pertains to the integrity and transparency of this program and the individuals representing it." Lauren's blood ran cold. Eric continued. "I believe one of the program directors may have misrepresented significant personal information that directly affects her professional role." A murmur rippled across the auditorium. Lauren stood abruptly. "Eric, stop! This isn't the place." But he spoke louder, voice booming through the microphone a staff member foolishly handed him. "Lauren Reed," he said, staring straight at her. "Is the boy sitting beside you my biological son?" Gasps exploded across the room. Cameras lifted, phones recorded. Noah froze, wide-eyed, clutching his inhaler. Lauren felt every eye in the hall pinning her in place, accusing, dissecting, demanding answers she wasn't ready to give. Her world began to tilt, her chest tightening, breath shortening. Not here. Not in front of strangers. Not in front of her child. "Mom," Noah whispered. "What's happening?" Lauren stepped in front of him instinctively, shielding him from the ocean of eyes. "We're leaving." But Eric blocked the aisle. "Not until you answer me." She glared at him, trembling. "You have no right to ambush me like this." His lips curled. "You took 7 years from me." Then Noah let out a sharp cough, followed by a wheeze so severe the entire room fell silent for a different reason. For a split second, the entire room stood frozen, hundreds of faces suspended between shock, disbelief, and morbid curiosity. But Lauren didn't see any of them. All she saw was Noah, her little boy, struggling to breathe. His small hands trembled as he lifted the inhaler, but the wheezing only grew louder, tighter, sharper, like air scraping through a narrow straw. "Oh, God, Noah, look at me," Lauren whispered, kneeling beside him as her hands shook uncontrollably. "Slow breaths, sweetheart, slow." But he couldn't. The panic made it worse. His chest heaved, eyes watering, face paling. People around them stood, unsure whether to help or simply keep recording with their phones. Lauren wanted to scream at them, to make them put those cameras down, to protect her son, to give them space, but she could barely breathe herself. Eric leaned forward, startled for the first time. "This is an asthma attack?" he asked, voice thinning with something that sounded almost like fear. Lauren didn't bother answering. She grabbed Noah's emergency nebulizer from her bag, hands fumbling with the pieces. Come on," she whispered, her vision blurring. The room buzzed with whispers. Someone said, "Is she even capable of caring for that boy?" Another murmured, "If he's the father, she hid a sick child from him?" Each comment stabbed her. Her heart hammered painfully against her ribs. The edges of her vision pulsed dark. She forced the mask over Noah's nose and mouth, turning the machine on with a trembling thumb. The soft hum of the nebulizer filled the uneasy silence, but Noah's breaths were still shallow, still strained. "Mom?" He choked faintly, reaching for her. Lauren's body shook. "I'm right here. Keep breathing for me, sweetheart." But inside, she was shattering. She could feel the weight of every mistake, every lie, every fear crushing her from the inside out. She remembered the night Noah was born, the doctor shouting about blood pressure, the darkness closing in. She remembered promising herself she would never let fear take her child away again. And here she was, terrified, helpless, with the entire world watching her fail. Eric knelt beside them suddenly. "Let me help," he said, reaching out. Lauren jerked away. "Don't touch him." Her shout echoed off the walls, raw, broken, desperate. Security rushed in, someone called for medical support, and the moderator begged the crowd to remain calm, though no one listened. Cameras continued recording. Rumors spread like wildfire. Lauren could feel the narrative forming already, and not in her favor. "Ma'am, are you okay?" a staff member asked, noticing how pale she was. Lauren tried to answer but failed. Her lungs felt tight, her chest collapsing in on itself. The stress, the shock, the fear, it was all too much. A sharp pain shot through her ribs. Noah saw her sway and reached out weakly. "Mom, don't fall." But she couldn't stop it. Her knees buckled, her vision blackened. She collapsed beside her son as gasps swept the room. And the last thing she heard before everything went dark was Eric shouting her name. And for the first time in years, he sounded terrified. Lauren woke up to the sterile scent of antiseptic and the soft beep of a heart monitor. The world came back to her in fragments. White ceiling tiles, cold sheets, the faint murmur of voices outside her curtain. Her chest ached, her throat was dry, and her first panicked thought was, "Where's Noah?" She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain spread across her ribs. A nurse hurried in. "Easy, Ms. Reed. You fainted from stress and a cardiac flare. You're stable now." "My son, Noah, where is he?" "He's okay. He's with Dr. Carter." Relief washed over her so intensely she nearly cried. But then another voice spoke, a voice she wished she'd never hear again. "Lauren." Her entire body stiffened. Eric stepped inside, still in his suit, jacket off, tie loosened. For once, he didn't look composed. He looked shaken. "You scared the hell out of me," he said quietly. Lauren glared at him. "You caused this." He didn't deny it. But he didn't back up either. "I need answers. You owe me that." Her pulse spiked, alarms on the monitor beeping louder. Eric raised his hands. "Fine, let's wait. But just so you know, Noah is safe. Dr. Carter is with him." At the mention of Ryan, something flickered behind Eric's eyes. Jealousy, suspicion, something more calculating. Before she could argue, the curtain slid open again. Ryan walked in, holding Noah. Noah's small hand clutched Ryan's collar, his breathing steadier now, his curls slightly damp from tears. Ryan's presence filled the room in a way that made Lauren feel grounded, safe, seen. Eric noticed, and hated it. "Put my son down," Eric snapped. Ryan looked at him calmly. "He's scared, and he's not your son until Lauren says he is." Eric took a step forward. "I'm not talking to you." "Well," Ryan replied, "that's unfortunate, because someone needs to talk sense before you destroy this woman twice." "2 times?" Eric barked. "She lied to me. She told me she ended the pregnancy." Lauren closed her eyes, tears sliding down her temples. "I told you that because you demanded it, because you said a baby would ruin your life." Noah looked at her, confused and curious. Ryan gently set him beside her on the bed, and then, in the softest voice, Noah asked, "Mom, did he not want me?" Lauren broke. No, sweetheart, he didn't want to be a dad back then. The room went silent. Then Noah added something that sliced through Eric's composure like a blade. So why does he want me now? Eric opened his mouth, but before he could speak, there was a knock. A young associate from Eric's firm entered, anxious, holding a folder. Mr. Dalton, I think you should see this. It's urgent. Eric frowned, snatched the file, skimmed through, and his face drained of color. Lauren watched him stiffen. Ryan's jaw tightened. Noah looked scared again, because inside that folder was a secret Eric never expected to surface. A secret powerful enough to destroy his entire career. For the next 48 hours, Lauren stayed in the hospital for monitoring, but something in her had shifted. The fear that had paralyzed her for 7 years, the fear of Eric, of the truth, of losing Noah, began to melt into something new, something sharper, something stronger. It happened slowly, in quiet moments. When she woke at dawn to find Noah asleep beside her, his tiny hand resting on her arm like a promise. When Ryan brought her a cup of coffee and a small paperback, Women Who Run with the Wolves, and said, "You've survived worse than him? You just forgot." When Jenna called, furious, pacing so loudly through the phone that Lauren could picture her knocking over half the furniture. "He humiliated you publicly. He triggered Noah's asthma. He nearly pushed your heart into another crisis. This is not the time to hide. This is the time to fight." And for the first time, Lauren didn't argue. She looked in the mirror that night. Dark circles, pale skin, hair tangled from stress and hospital pillows. But she didn't see fragility anymore. She saw a woman who had raised a child alone, worked through nights, survived debt, illness, fear, and heartbreak. She saw someone who had been underestimated by every person who ever claimed to love her. Most of all, she saw someone who deserved better. By the time she was discharged, she wasn't the same woman who collapsed on the conference floor. She walked out wearing clean clothes Jenna had brought, simple black trousers, a soft ivory blouse, a blazer that fit her shoulders just right. Not expensive, not flashy, but intentional. Powerful in a quiet way. She tied her hair back, put on minimal makeup, and looked composed. Ryan noticed. "You look ready?" "I am." Lauren lifted her chin. "For everything." He handed her laptop bag. "Then let's start with the emails Eric thinks are buried. Alexis is waiting." Over the next few hours, Lauren sat in a small meeting room at the nonprofit office, while Alexis Moore, her new attorney, laid out the plan. The file the young associate delivered to Eric contained evidence of manipulated email deletions and undisclosed financial arrangements, things that could cost him his partnership, even his license. But Alexis had something more valuable, a strategy. "You're done playing defense," the attorney said. "From now on, we move first." Lauren nodded, absorbing every instruction, every worst-case scenario, every legal angle. She wasn't trembling this time. She wasn't shrinking. She was learning. Even Noah noticed the change. "Mom," he whispered that evening, "you look taller." She laughed softly. "I'm just standing straighter, sweetheart." Yet the true moment of transformation came when she opened her closet and stared at the clothes she'd been hiding behind for years. Oversized sweaters, faded jeans, neutral colors chosen to avoid attention. Lauren reached in, pulled out the navy blazer she'd worn to her nonprofit interview, and set it aside. Then she chose something she hadn't worn since Chicago. A simple deep green dress Jenna once bought her, saying it made her look like a woman who remembers her worth. Lauren slipped it on, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in 7 years, she saw herself. Not the girl who ran. Not the woman who feared losing everything, but the mother, the survivor, the fighter. And the next time she faced Eric Dalton, he would not be facing the Lauren he once broke. he would be facing the Lauren he could no longer control. The conference's final day was supposed to be routine. Closing remarks, networking sessions, polished speeches about collaboration and innovation. Instead, it became the stage for a reckoning that would follow Eric Dalton for the rest of his career. Lauren arrived early, wearing the deep green dress that made her feel like she'd taken her identity back. Jenna walked beside her, armed with quiet fury. Ryan followed shortly after, reviewing documents Alexis had prepared. Lauren wasn't here to hide. She was here to confront, to reclaim the narrative Eric stole from her. And fate delivered her the perfect moment. A special panel had been added last minute, one discussing ethical leadership in corporate partnerships. Eric was a featured speaker. Reputation management was his playground. Today, it would be his downfall. The ballroom was grand, chandeliers dripping gold, tables lined with white linen, the San Francisco skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Executives filled the seats, murmuring about partnerships and funding opportunities. Cameras from industry media outlets stood poised. Lauren took a seat near the front, close enough for Eric to see her, far enough not to appear staged. Noah stayed in a quiet room with a child care specialist, the nonprofit hired specifically for today. Safe. Protected. When Eric walked onto the stage, he wore a confident smile. But Lauren saw the stiffness in his shoulders, the tightness around his jaw. He had read the evidence Alexis possessed. He knew the sword hanging above him. He just didn't know when it would fall. The moderator began, "Today we'll discuss transparency and ethical leadership." But Alexis stood. "Excuse me," she said smoothly, projecting her voice. "Before we discuss ethics, I believe the attendees deserve full context regarding one of today's speakers." The ballroom rippled with whispers. Eric's smile cracked. "Ms. Reed," the moderator asked uneasily, "is there a concern?" "It's not Ms. Reed who's speaking," Alexis replied. "It's her counsel." Eric rose slightly from his chair. "Sit down, Alexis. This isn't the place." Lauren stood. "You made it the place when you ambushed me here, Eric." The crowd tensed. Phones lifted. Cameras pivoted. Alexis opened a folder, the same type the associate delivered to Eric 2 days earlier. "Mr. Dalton," she announced, "has knowingly erased email records related to reproductive coercion, mishandled client funds, and used his fiancée's name to shelter offshore accounts." A gasp shot through the room. Brooke, seated near the aisle, turned white. Alexis continued, flipping another page. "Additionally," her voice sharpened, "he publicly harassed Ms. Reed and endangered a medically fragile child to manipulate custody leverage." Eric slammed his palm onto the table. "None of this is admissible. You don't have jurisdiction." "You're right," Alexis said smoothly. "But they do." She gestured toward the back doors. 2 representatives from the State Bar's Ethics Committee entered the room. The ballroom erupted. Eric's face collapsed, rage twisting into something almost feral. "Lauren, how dare you?" Lauren stepped forward, steady and calm. "You wanted a public confrontation. Here it is." "You think this will stop me?" he hissed. "It already has," she said. "You can't bully your way out of the truth." For the first time, Eric Dalton, the man who built his life on control, stood powerless beneath the weight of his own lies. And the entire room watched his empire crack. The chaos of the conference faded into headlines within hours. By the next morning, industry news outlets published articles about the Dalton scandal. Bloggers dissected every second of the confrontation, and legal forums buzzed with speculation about Eric's future. But Lauren wanted none of it. She closed her laptop gently, choosing peace over curiosity, and turned her attention back to the only thing that truly mattered: Noah. They spent the following weekend quietly at home. Noah drew planets and rockets at the kitchen table while Lauren brewed tea, letting the warm steam soften her tight chest. For the first time in years, she felt her breath settle, slow even, steady. Her heart didn't race with fear of the next email, the next threat, the next ghost from her past. Her world, once fragile, finally felt solid. On Monday morning, Ryan knocked on her apartment door with donuts and a shy smile. "Celebration breakfast," he said. "A very small, very sugary victory feast." Lauren laughed, really laughed. The sound surprised her. They drove to the waterfront after dropping Noah at school. The Seattle Bay shimmered beneath a rare, clear sky, and Lauren breathed in the salty air. For years she had avoided moments like this, quiet, gentle, hopeful, because they felt dangerous, like she didn't deserve them. But today, she let herself feel everything. "I'm proud of you," Ryan said, leaning against the railing beside her. "You stood up to him, not just for Noah, for yourself." Lauren looked out at the water. "For so long, I thought leaving was the bravest thing I ever did. But I was wrong. Facing him, choosing to stop being afraid, that was harder." Ryan hesitated, then reached for her hand. "You don't have to face anything alone anymore, Lauren." Her breath caught, soft, warm, unfamiliar. She didn't pull away. Later that week, the state bar officially announced a full investigation into Eric Dalton. His partnership was suspended. His reputation, once his greatest weapon, crumbled faster than he could salvage it. Brooke left him publicly, returning the ring and releasing a statement clearing her name. For the first time in his life, Eric had to face consequences, real ones. Lauren didn't celebrate his downfall. She didn't need revenge anymore. She had something better: closure. One evening, Noah climbed into her lap with a drawing, 3 figures standing beneath a starry sky. "Is that us?" she asked. "Us," he said proudly. "And maybe Dr. Ryan, if you want." Her heart softened. Maybe. She hung the picture on the fridge. A week later, Ryan invited her and Noah to a picnic by the water. They ate sandwiches, fed ducks, and watched the sun melt into the horizon. As the sky turned gold, Ryan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and whispered, "You built a life out of nothing, Lauren. You deserve joy now." Lauren looked at him, really looked, and felt something bloom inside her, gentle but certain. Maybe she did deserve joy. Maybe she deserved love. Maybe after everything, she had finally come home to herself. And as Noah curled against her side, Ryan's hand warm in hers. Lauren Reed knew one truth with absolute clarity. She had lost everything once. But in choosing herself, she gained a future worth living for. For days after the conference scandal, Lauren felt as if she were living inside someone else's story, one where people whispered her name not out of pity, but admiration. Messages flooded her inbox from other single mothers, colleagues, journalists, even strangers who had watched the viral clip of her confronting Eric Dalton. Some praised her courage. Some thanked her for exposing a powerful man. Some simply wrote, "You made me feel less alone." Lauren didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired, hollow, and strangely lighter. The nonprofit's board called an emergency meeting to reassure her she still had her job. In fact, they offered her a promotion, an expanded role overseeing family advocacy across the West Coast. "Your voice matters," one board member told her, "and now people are listening." It stunned her. She had spent years shrinking herself, convinced she didn't deserve space. Now the world was handing her a microphone she never asked for, but maybe needed. Meanwhile, Eric's downfall unraveled swiftly and publicly. Legal analysts on news segments dissected the ethics violations. The state bar confirmed an investigation. Dalton and Blake scrubbed his photo from their website by the end of the week. Brooke Langston released a statement that was equal parts gracious and devastating. "I refuse to stand beside a man who weaponizes fear and destroys the people who once trusted him." Lauren read it twice. It felt like justice wearing a pearl necklace, but justice alone didn't heal everything. Noah still had questions, questions that dug deeper than any legal document could. One night as Lauren tucked him into bed, he looked up with big, searching eyes. "Mom, will he still try to take me?" Her breath caught. "No, sweetheart, not anymore." "Because you protected me at the meeting?" "Yes, and because we have people helping us now." He considered this, fiddling with the corner of his blanket. "Is Dr. Ryan helping too?" Lauren smiled gently. "Yes, he cares about both of us." Noah nodded thoughtfully. "I like him. He listens." Something warm fluttered in her chest. The next afternoon, Ryan invited them to a quiet coastal overlook just outside Seattle. Noah darted around collecting rocks, while Lauren and Ryan walked slowly along the driftwood-strewn shore. The wind was cool, the sky streaked with orange and rose hues. "You've been incredibly strong," Ryan said softly. "I didn't feel strong." "That's usually how strength works," he replied. "You only see it when you look back." Lauren paused, gazing at the horizon. "Ryan, everything feels different now. Like the ground underneath me finally stopped shaking." He stepped closer, not imposing, not demanding, just present. "Maybe it's because you finally stopped running." She let out a shaky breath. "I think you might be right." They didn't kiss. Not yet. The moment wasn't asking for romance. It was asking for trust, for healing, for slow beginnings. As Noah ran back toward them with a handful of seashells, Lauren realized something profound. For the first time in 7 years, her future didn't scare her. But she had no idea that an unexpected letter, arriving the very next morning, would test that newfound peace in a way she never saw coming. The letter arrived the next morning, thin, crisp, tucked neatly inside a white envelope with no return address. Lauren found it on her doormat just as she was grabbing her keys to take Noah to school. At first, she assumed it was a bill, maybe a medical statement from the hospital. But then she saw her name typed in a cold, formal font. Ms. Lauren Reed, personal and confidential. Her stomach tightened. Noah tugged her sleeve. "Mom, can we go?" "I don't want to be late." "Yes, sweetheart." She slipped the envelope into her bag, forcing a smile. "We'll look at it later." But the envelope felt heavy, as if it held a secret waiting to detonate. After dropping Noah off, Lauren sat in her car and opened it. There were only 2 sheets inside. The first was a notice from a private investigative firm in Manhattan. The second, a copy of a retainer agreement. The signature at the bottom made her blood run cold. Eric Dalton. Lauren's pulse hammered as she read the letter. "This correspondence is to inform you that Mr. Dalton has retained our services to conduct a comprehensive review of the circumstances surrounding your departure from Chicago, the absence of paternal acknowledgement, and the well-being of the minor child, Noah Reed. Our investigators will be in Seattle intermittently as we gather necessary documentation and witness statements." Her hands trembled. Witness statements? Well-being? Intermittently in Seattle? This wasn't about custody anymore. Eric was digging deeper, into her past, into her choices, into anyone who had helped her. And then she saw it. A handwritten note scrawled at the bottom in Eric's sharp, familiar handwriting. "You may have embarrassed me publicly, but you will not destroy my life. I will find out everything you've been hiding." Lauren's breath hitched. He wasn't surrendering. He wasn't accepting defeat from the bar investigation. He wasn't backing down. He was escalating. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. She answered shakily. "Hi." His voice warmed instantly. "Hey, I was thinking, coffee before work?" She swallowed hard. "Ryan, something happened." She met him at a small cafe near the bay. The moment she handed him the letter, Ryan's expression darkened. He hired investigators? He muttered. Lauren, this man doesn't know when to stop. It feels like he's coming after anyone connected to me, she whispered. What if he pulls Noah's medical records? What if he contacts Jenna? What if he tries to twist everything? Ryan leaned forward, lowering his voice. Hey, look at me. She did. You're not alone in this anymore. Eric doesn't get to rewrite the story. Lauren closed her eyes, fighting tears. I thought the worst was over. It's not, Ryan said. But you're stronger now. And he's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. She nodded, though fear coiled in her chest like a tightening rope. As they stepped outside, a black sedan rolled slowly past them. The driver didn't look at her, but Lauren felt watched, observed, targeted. Ryan, she whispered. He followed her gaze, jaw tightening. Someone was following her, and the letter had been the warning shot. Lauren didn't know it yet, but Eric's investigators were about to uncover something even she never expected, something buried in her past that would change the entire game. Lauren spent the rest of the day in a fog, every sound amplified, every shadow suddenly suspicious. The letter gnawed at her thoughts. Eric's words, I will find out everything you've been hiding, echoed like a threat in a dark room. But what terrified her wasn't just the investigation. It was the possibility that Eric might dig up parts of her past she had tried desperately to bury. That afternoon, Jenna showed up unannounced. Hair messy, keys still in her hand. I heard from Ryan. Let me see the letter. The moment Jenna read it, her expression hardened. He's going after your support network. That's classic Eric. When he can't control you, he tries to isolate you. Lauren rubbed her temples. He'll paint me as unstable. He'll use my heart condition. He'll use Noah's asthma. Jenna's jaw clenched. He'll try. But he doesn't know the full story, does he? Lauren swallowed. No. And he can't. Because there was a part of her past Eric didn't know. Something she never told anyone except Jenna. Something that could be twisted beyond repair if it fell into the wrong hands. Before Jenna could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face drained of color. What? Lauren whispered. Jenna handed her the phone. A single message from an unknown number. We'd like to speak with you regarding Lauren Reed. Anonymous tips welcome. Confidential Investigations Unit. Lauren felt the world tilt. He contacted you already? He's casting a wide net, Jenna said, stepping closer. Lauren, listen to me. He's not just looking for information. He's hoping someone will slip and give him something he can weaponize. Lauren pressed a hand over her chest, breathing shakily. This is my fault. I dragged you into this. No, Jenna said firmly. Eric dragged us all into this the moment he decided he deserved ownership over you. Before Lauren could answer, a car horn sounded outside. Both women went still. Ryan stepped in a moment later, holding a file in his hand. You need to see this. He laid the papers on the table, photocopies of public records Eric's investigators had already pulled. Financial statements, medical records, employment history. But one line stood out, circled in red ink, emergency admission, cardiac distress, possible collapse during childbirth. Ryan looked up. They're using your medical history to build a case. They're going to claim you're physically unfit to care for Noah long-term. Lauren felt sick. But that was years ago. And I survived. They don't care, Ryan said. They just want leverage. Jenna cursed under her breath. And if they dig deeper... Lauren closed her eyes. She knew exactly what Jenna meant. There was another hospital record, a darker one, from before she met Eric. A record that would shatter the strong, polished version of Lauren she'd worked so hard to rebuild. Ryan noticed the shift in her face. Lauren, what aren't you telling us? She opened her mouth, hesitated, then shook her head. Not yet. I need time. But time was the one thing she no longer had. Because as they spoke, another black sedan rolled slowly past her apartment building, watching, waiting, recording movements. And by nightfall, Eric's investigators would uncover the first clue leading straight to the secret Lauren feared most. Lauren barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the black sedan idling below her apartment window, headlights glowing like watchful eyes. She kept replaying the words from the investigation letter, the circled medical record, Jenna's tense expression, Ryan's worried tone. By sunrise, she knew one truth. If she didn't confront her past, Eric would weaponize it before she had a chance to breathe. Mid-morning, Jenna arrived with coffee, but Lauren didn't reach for it. Instead, she held a thin, folded document in her hand, one she had kept hidden in a shoebox for years. "Jenna," she whispered, "I think it's time." Jenna's eyebrows pulled together. "Are you sure?" Lauren nodded slowly. "If Eric finds this before I tell Ryan or Alexis, he'll spin it into something monstrous." Before Jenna could respond, there was a knock at the door. Ryan. He stepped in, took one look at Lauren's face, and stopped cold. "What happened? You look like someone drained the life from you." Lauren exhaled shakily. "I need to tell you something. Something from before Eric. Something I've never told anyone except Jenna." Ryan sat down gently, giving her space but staying close enough to offer comfort. "Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Together." Her hands trembled as she unfolded the document, a hospital report dated 9 years ago. "I was 23, she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Still in Ohio, working 2 jobs, trying to pay off school. Her voice cracked. Jenna placed a steady hand on her back. Lauren swallowed hard and continued. "I collapsed at work. They brought me to the ER, the doctors. They asked if I'd been under severe stress. They asked if I felt unsafe at home." Ryan's eyes softened. "Lauren." Tears blurred her vision. "I told them the truth. I had a boyfriend back then. He wasn't violent, not physically, but he controlled everything. My money, my schedule, who I talked to. When I tried to leave, he threatened to ruin my job, my credit, everything. I was terrified. The doctors diagnosed it as an acute stress event. But the record says something else." She handed the report to Ryan. His eyes scanned it, then widened. "Possible emotional abuse. Patient at moderate risk. Recommended safe relocation and counseling." Ryan looked up slowly. "Your past was documented as abuse." Lauren nodded, tears spilling. "I left Ohio that week. I disappeared. I changed my number. But the hospital kept a record. And if Eric finds it, he'll twist it. He'll say I'm unstable, that I have a history of psychological issues, that I'm unfit." Jenna cut in sharply. "But that's not what happened. She was escaping a controlling partner. Same pattern Eric is showing now." Ryan reached for Lauren's trembling hands. "You survived something horrible long before Eric. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you extraordinary." Lauren shook her head. "But the investigators won't see that. They'll see a woman with a history." Ryan leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then we tell the truth before Eric can distort it. We show the pattern. We show the courage. We show that you've been running from controlling men your entire adult life, and you refuse to run anymore." Lauren let out a shaky breath, a mix of fear and relief. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know about Ohio. We'll be in touch." Her blood turned to ice. Eric wasn't just digging into her present. He had already found the skeleton she feared most. Lauren stared at the message on her phone, her breath shallow. "We know about Ohio. We'll be in touch." It felt like a ghost reaching out, a ghost Eric had dug up and unleashed. She felt the room tilt slightly, as if the walls were closing in. Ryan took the phone from her hand, reading the text twice. His jaw tightened with a low, dangerous determination she had never seen from him before. He's weaponizing trauma now. That's a new level of low. Lauren wrapped her arms around herself. He's going to twist it into something it's not. He'll say I'm unstable, that I attract chaos, that I've been running all my life. You ran because you had to survive, Ryan cut in. There's a difference. But the fear had already gripped her. The court won't care. A record is a record, and Eric knows exactly how to make me look incompetent. As if summoned by her dread, her phone rang again, this time a number she recognized, Eric's attorney. She didn't answer. Ryan put a hand over hers. You don't have to deal with this alone. Jenna paced the small living room, fury radiating off her. Eric's pattern is clearer than ever. Intimidation, control, psychological warfare. We use that. We paint the picture of who he really is. Lauren shook her head. But he'll say I had a history before him, that I'm volatile. That's why, Ryan said slowly, we'll bring in someone who can speak to the truth. Before Lauren could ask, a knock sounded at the door. All three of them tensed. Ryan peeked through the peephole and exhaled. It's Alexis. Her attorney swept inside, laptop under her arm, hair in a messy bun that screamed she had pulled an all-nighter. I got your message, Alexis said, setting her bag down. We have a serious situation. Lauren felt her stomach drop. They know about Ohio. Alexis didn't look surprised. We expected Eric to go low, but this is evidence of a pattern of coercion and stalking, on his part, not yours. Lauren blinked. How? Alexis pulled out a file. That investigative firm he hired? They have a reputation for unethical tactics, digging through sealed records, misrepresenting their affiliations, coercing witnesses. She paused. If they contacted you with threats or intimidation, that's grounds for a harassment claim. Jenna crossed her arms triumphantly. Karma's coming, Lauren. Just wait. But Alexis wasn't finished. There's more. Someone from your past, someone from Ohio, was contacted by Eric's investigators, and instead of cooperating, they reached out to me. Lauren felt her heart stop. Who? A nurse who treated you the night you collapsed. Alexis met her eyes. She remembers you. She remembers everything. And she's willing to give a sworn statement. Lauren's breath hitched. Why? Alexis smiled faintly. Because she said you were one of the bravest young women she ever met. She remembered how terrified you were, how alone you were, and how hard you fought to leave. Lauren covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. This affidavit, Alexis continued, lifting a document, proves that episode was not a breakdown, it was an escape. It shows a young woman removing herself from an abusive dynamic. Not instability, strength. Ryan squeezed her hand. This is your truth, Lauren. Not the version Eric is trying to create. But as relief washed over her, a new, colder fear crept in, because Alexis's last words were a warning. Eric won't stop. And his next move will be the most dangerous one yet. Lauren had spent the past week bracing herself for impact, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for what happened next. It was a Thursday evening, the sky outside painted in dusky purples as Seattle drizzle tapped lightly against her apartment windows. Noah was in the living room building a Lego rocket, humming softly, finally breathing easily again. Ryan was in the kitchen cooking pasta, sleeves rolled up, looking like he belonged there, like peace had finally found its place in her life. Lauren almost allowed herself to exhale. Almost. Then came the pounding on the door. Not a knock, a pound, sharp, aggressive, authoritative. Ryan froze. Stay here, he whispered, stepping around the counter. But Lauren knew, deep in her spine, who sent whoever stood on the other side. Her heart hammered painfully. Her palms turned cold. She walked to the door, each step a weight. When she opened it, Two men in dark suits stood beneath the hallway light. "Ms. Reed?" the taller one asked. Lauren nodded cautiously. "Yes?" He handed her a thick envelope before flashing a badge. "You've been served." Ryan was instantly beside her. "On what grounds?" The second man spoke, monotone and direct. "Petition for emergency custody review, filed by Mr. Eric Dalton." Lauren's vision blurred. "Emergency custody? He's trying to take Noah now?" The man didn't soften. "Per the petition, Mr. Dalton asserts that the child is in immediate medical and emotional danger under your care." Lauren staggered backward as if struck. No, that's a lie. Noah is stable, he's loved. How can he claim that?" The man continued, flipping through his notes. "Mr. Dalton also cites a history of psychological instability, referencing a prior ER visit in Ohio." Ryan snapped. "That was documented as emotional abuse, not instability." The man didn't respond. He simply said, "Court hearing is scheduled for Monday at 8 a.m. Failure to appear may result in temporary custody awarded to petitioner." Lauren's knees buckled. Ryan caught her before she hit the floor. "Get out," Ryan said to the men, his voice shaking with protective rage. "Now!" The door closed sharply behind them. Lauren clutched the envelope to her chest, trembling violently. "He's taking my son. He's actually trying to take my son." Ryan held her face gently. "No, he's trying. That's all." But fear drowned every logical thought. Jenna arrived minutes later, breathless. When she saw the papers, her expression darkened into something feral. "He's using emergency custody petitions. That's how abusers fast-track control." Lauren sank onto the couch, shaking. "How do I fight this? What if the judge sees the Ohio record? What if they think I can't handle Noah's condition?" Ryan knelt before her. "Listen to me. Eric may have power, but he doesn't have truth. You have documentation, you have witnesses, you have a medical specialist ready to testify, and you have an attorney who is smarter than every man in his office." She swallowed hard. "And you?" Ryan's voice softened. "You have me. I'm not going anywhere." Before she could reply, a vibration buzzed on the coffee table, Lauren's phone. A new message from an unknown number. "If you want to keep the boy, meet me tomorrow." "Alone." Ryan read it over her shoulder, and his face turned to stone. "Lauren, this isn't just legal anymore. Eric is crossing into something darker." Lauren tightened her grip on the phone, fear morphing into something sharper. Resolve. Because tomorrow she would walk straight into whatever trap Eric had set, and this time she wouldn't be the one caught. Lauren didn't sleep at all. She sat on the edge of her bed while rain streaked against the window, her mind running in circles. Every instinct told her not to go. Every fear screamed that Eric wanted something far worse than custody leverage. But beneath the terror was something fiercer. A mother's refusal to lose her child without a fight. At sunrise, she packed Noah's inhaler, a small notebook of his medical records, and a voice recorder Ryan had handed her before leaving the night before. "Just in case he tries to twist your words," he'd said, his eyes dark with worry. She didn't tell Ryan about the meeting location. She couldn't risk him following her and escalating things. Jenna would have chained her to the couch if she knew. So Lauren slipped out quietly once Noah left for school, her heart thudding in her throat. The message had given an address. Pier 47, Warehouse, C. Noon. Come alone. It felt like a scene from a crime documentary. It felt like madness. But she went anyway. When she arrived, the pier was nearly deserted. Fog clung to the old wooden beams, the smell of salt heavy in the air. The warehouse loomed like a sleeping beast, rusted metal siding, broken windows, a faded number C barely visible on the side. She stepped inside. At first, it looked empty, sunlight filtering through gaps in the roof, dust motes dancing. Then she heard footsteps. A man emerged from the shadows. Not Eric, one of the private investigators. Lauren's heart seized. "Where's Eric?" "He doesn't come to meetings like this," the man said coldly. "He doesn't need to." She swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" He smirked, pulling a folder from his coat. "Information, cooperation, something we can use." Lauren steadied her voice. "I'm not giving you anything." "Oh, you already have." He flipped open the folder. "Your Ohio medical record, your cardiac collapse during childbirth, financial instability, history of fleeing abusive environments. Judges love patterns, Ms. Reed. They eat them for breakfast." Lauren trembled, but she didn't break. "You don't know the truth behind those records." "We don't care about the truth. We care about the story the court will believe." Her stomach flipped. Then the man leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Sign over temporary custody today, voluntarily, and we'll convince Eric not to expose all of this." Lauren felt something inside her snap. 7 years of silence. 7 years of fear. 7 years of running. She lifted her chin. "No." The man straightened. "Then you'll lose." "No," she repeated stronger. "Eric will." She reached into her handbag and clicked the voice recorder Ryan had given her. The man froze. "You little—" But footsteps echoed again, louder this time. Lauren turned, and her breath caught. Ryan burst through the side entrance of the warehouse, chest heaving, eyes burning. "Step away from her," he growled. The investigator stiffened. She was told to come alone. Ryan stepped forward. "You really think I'd let her walk into a trap without backup?" Lauren's knees weakened. She hadn't told him, but he found her anyway. "How?" Ryan pulled out his phone. "Everything you just said is recorded, and the police are on their way." The investigator paled, but Lauren didn't see him anymore. She saw Ryan, standing between her and danger, ready to burn the world if it meant protecting her. She finally breathed. And none of them knew that while this confrontation unfolded, Eric Dalton was making a move far more reckless and far more catastrophic than anyone expected. The police arrived faster than expected. Within minutes, sirens echoed down the pier, flashing red and blue lights cutting through the fog like something divine and merciless. The investigator who'd threatened Lauren stiffened, trying to slide the folder back into his coat, but Ryan blocked him. "You're not going anywhere," Ryan warned, his voice low and controlled, the voice of someone who had held his rage for far too long. The officer approached. "What's going on here?" Lauren spoke first. "This man threatened me, pressured me to sign temporary custody of my son. He referenced sealed medical records and implied they'd be used against me." Ryan added, "We recorded everything. He was acting on behalf of Eric Dalton." The officer shot the investigator a cold stare. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." As the cuffs clicked into place, the man sneered. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Ryan stepped closer, a dangerous calm settling over him. "Actually, we do. A desperate man who hired vultures to clean his mess." The investigator was escorted out, still muttering threats. But something in Lauren's chest unraveled, a knot that had been tightening for years. For the first time, she felt the power shifting. Ryan touched her shoulder gently. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though tears welled in her eyes. "You found me." His expression softened. "I put a tracker in your bag last night, the same one hospitals use for patients who might have cardiac episodes." He paused. "I didn't do it to control you. I did it because I knew you'd go alone." Lauren's breath trembled. "Thank you." But their sense of safety didn't last long. Ryan's phone buzzed, then Jenna's, then Lauren's. A single message from Alexis. "Emergency. Eric made a public statement. Call me now." Lauren's heart lurched. Ryan hit call immediately. "Alexis, what happened?" Her voice came through breathless and furious. "You all need to get to the office. Eric just held a press conference on the steps of Dalton and Blake." Lauren pressed the phone to her ear. "What did he say?" Alexis exhaled sharply. "Everything. He painted himself as a victim, claimed you hid Noah out of spite, claimed you fabricated stories about abuse, claimed the bar investigation was an act of revenge." Lauren felt her legs weaken. "He's lying. Publicly." "It gets worse," Alexis continued. "He revealed your Ohio record, your heart condition. He said you have a pattern of psychological instability. Half the media outlets in Manhattan are running it right now." Ryan clenched his fists. "We can sue him for defamation." "We will," Alexis snapped. "But that's not the worst part." Lauren whispered, "Then what is?" There was a pause. Long, heavy, suffocating. "Eric filed an emergency injunction to prevent you from removing Noah from the state. If we don't fight this, they can take custody during Monday's hearing. And Lauren—" Her voice softened with something like sorrow. Eric just hired one of the top custody litigators in the country." Lauren's blood went cold. He wasn't just attacking her reputation. He wasn't just twisting her past. He was preparing to destroy her life with legal firepower she couldn't afford. Ryan stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her back. "We'll fight him." Lauren closed her eyes, a single tear escaping. But Alexis delivered the final blow. "Prepare yourself, Lauren. Eric's goal isn't shared custody, it's full custody. He wants Noah, and he wants you out of the equation entirely." The world seemed to tilt, the pier groaning beneath them. And for the first time since this war began, Lauren wondered if she was about to lose everything she had fought so hard to save. Lauren felt as if she were standing in the center of a storm that had finally torn open. Every news outlet that once ignored her existence now plastered her name across headlines. "Eric Dalton claims ex-wife hid child for 7 years. Psychological instability, new details on Lauren Reed's past. Emergency custody battle begins." Pictures of her collapsing at the conference were replayed like a spectacle. Armchair experts dissected her medical history with chilling detachment. Comment threads were vicious, strangers reducing her entire life to rumors and assumptions. By Friday morning, Lauren sat at her kitchen table, phone buzzing nonstop, hands trembling as she read another cruel comment. "If she fainted once, she'll faint again. The boy deserves stability." Her breath wavered. Ryan gently took the phone from her hands. "Stop reading this. It's poison." "It's the court of public opinion," Lauren whispered. "And Eric knows it. He's shaping the narrative so the judge goes in biased." Ryan knelt beside her. "Then we counter it. We show the truth." Before she could argue, Jenna burst through the door carrying a reusable grocery bag and radiating fury. "Okay," Jenna announced. "We're done letting a narcissistic sociopath control the media. Time for our move." Lauren blinked. "Our move?" Jenna pulled out a laptop, slamming it on the table. "Yes, we're going public, not defensively, strategically. You're going to tell your story before Eric twists any more of it." Lauren's chest tightened. "I don't want to expose Noah." "And you won't," Jenna insisted. "This will be about you. Your abuse history, your rebuilding, your nonprofit work, the truth. You don't need to name Eric. Everyone already knows who he is." Ryan nodded slowly. "This is how we take power back." Lauren looked between them, heart pounding. "But if I go public, they'll analyze everything. They'll pick apart my expressions, my pauses, my words." "Let them," Jenna said. "They'll see a mother fighting for her son, not a scandal." Before Lauren could decide, Alexis arrived, coat still damp from the rain. She placed a large binder on the table. "That," she said, nodding toward the laptop, "might be the smartest thing you do before Monday." Lauren stared. "You think I should speak publicly?" Alexis sat across from her. "Eric framed you as unstable. But you're the director of a respected nonprofit. You work with families. You survived abuse. You raised a medically fragile child alone. The more the world sees the woman you actually are, the less power Eric has. Ryan added. And if you're afraid you'll be alone up there, you won't be. He held her gaze, steady and sure. Lauren took a long, shaking breath. Okay. What do I even say? Jenna grinned. Leave that to me. They spent hours drafting a statement. Honest, vulnerable, powerful. No specifics about Eric, no mudslinging. Just truth. That evening, Lauren stood before a camera in a small media room Alexis arranged. A soft light illuminated her face. Her green dress made her look composed, elegant, grounded. The producer counted down. 3, 2, 1. Lauren inhaled deeply and began. My name is Lauren Reed. For years I lived in silence. Her voice quivered at first, but as she continued, something shifted. Her spine straightened, her tone steadied, her truth flowed. She spoke of emotional abuse, of surviving heart complications during childbirth, of raising Noah with resilience and love. She never mentioned Eric's name, but she didn't need to. When the live stream ended, the producer whispered, That was extraordinary. Lauren exhaled shakily, but just as hope began to rise, Ryan's phone buzzed. He read the message, and his expression froze. What is it? Lauren asked. Ryan swallowed hard. It's Eric. He turned the screen toward her. Congratulations on your little speech. See you Monday. Bring a lawyer, and say goodbye to the boy. Lauren's breath caught. The real battle hadn't even started yet. The courthouse on Monday morning felt colder than any Seattle winter. Reporters crowded the steps, microphones angled like weapons. Camera shutters clicked in rapid bursts as Lauren stepped out of the car, her hand tightly wrapped around Noah's, Ryan and Alexis flanking them like shields. Lauren wore the same deep green dress, the one she had chosen the day she decided to stop running. Today, it wasn't just clothing. It was her armor. Inside the courtroom, Eric sat with his legal team, 4 attorneys in pristine suits, stacks of documents, and an arrogance that radiated across the room. He didn't look nervous. He looked entitled. Certain victory was already his. But Lauren had something he didn't: truth, witnesses, courage, and a son who loved her more than anything in the world. The judge called the session to order. Eric's lawyer began with a dramatic performance, talking about instability, hidden medical events, and a child denied a father. Eric nodded solemnly, as if he were the one carrying 7 years of struggle alone. Then it was Lauren's turn. Alexis stood, commanding attention with calm, precise authority. Your Honor, we will address each allegation directly, and we will reveal a pattern of manipulation and coercive control perpetrated not by Ms. Reed, but by Mr. Dalton. She presented medical records, witness statements, Noah's pediatrician's testimony, and, most damning of all, the affidavit from the Ohio nurse. The courtroom shifted. Eric began to sweat. When Lauren took the stand, her voice trembled at first. Then she remembered every night she had stayed awake to keep Noah breathing. Every moment she feared her heart would fail before he grew up. Every insult, every manipulation, every time Eric made her feel small. She lifted her chin. I left because I chose my child, she said steadily. Not because I was unstable, but because the environment I was in was unsafe. And I have raised him with love, responsibility, and sacrifice. I would do it again without hesitation. Eric's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. When Eric himself testified, his mask finally cracked. He snapped under pressure, contradicted himself, slipped into aggression. At one point, he slammed his palm onto the table, loud enough that Noah flinched. The judge noticed. By noon, everyone knew the verdict before it was spoken, but hearing it felt like oxygen after drowning. Full custody remains with Ms. Reed. A restraining order is granted against Mr. Dalton. Emergency petition dismissed with prejudice. Lauren's knees nearly buckled. Relief crashed through her in a tidal wave. Noah buried his face in her shoulder, whispering, "We won, Mom. We won." Eric stared ahead in shock. His empire gone, his lies exposed, his power shattered. Consequences finally catching up. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed again. But this time, Lauren didn't shrink. She held her son's hand, shoulders steady, eyes bright. Ryan approached her slowly, almost reverently. "You did it," he whispered. "No," Lauren said, smiling with tears in her eyes. "We did." He cupped her cheek gently. "Is it too soon to ask what comes next?" Lauren glanced at Noah, laughing now, lighter than she had ever seen him. Then she looked back at Ryan. Hope bloomed. "Maybe," she said softly. "What comes next is finally living, not surviving." Ryan leaned forward, brushing a tender kiss against her forehead. And as the wind swept through the courthouse steps, Lauren Reed realized she hadn't just won a custody battle. She had reclaimed her life, her voice, her future, and a love she finally deserved. All right. So the story has finally come to an end. And if you are still here, still listening, still feeling everything Lauren walked through, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way only real life can. Because this wasn't just drama. This was about resilience, about the quiet, stubborn courage we often forget we have. Stoic philosophy has a line I love from Marcus Aurelius. "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Lauren is living proof of that. She couldn't control Eric or the lies or the fear, but she learned to control her response, her strength, her truth, and that changed everything. Her story reminds us that healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's just choosing yourself again and again until the world finally shifts with you. So, my friend watching this right now, if you're here, maybe life has thrown you something heavy too. Maybe you're healing, maybe you're trying, maybe you're tired, but you're still here, and that means something. If this story gave you even a little courage, a little clarity, or a little hope, then like, share, and subscribe so more people, just like you, can feel less alone, less afraid, and more empowered to take back their own story. We're building a community where stories heal, and I'm grateful you're a part of it.